Hello guys, we are back at it again. We are in Genesis, Monday Manna. Excited to get back to it. I'm excited to get back to the Word, and Genesis is my favorite book of the Bible, so hopefully it is y'all's as well. Well, y'all coming to see this. So, but we're getting back at it. We are actually going to be doing, I put it on a post, but we're going to be doing Monday Mannas weekly. I'm not going to forsake this, so I really want this to just be something that I make a priority. So, more than my Friday Fire. So, if you're watching this and you notice, hey, I didn't come out with a Friday Fire last week, I'm coming out with it this week, the day of this recording. I'm going to start publishing and having my Friday Fires every other week, but my Monday Mannas are going to be every single week. So, that's something to just a little update, a little thing going on. So I wanted to let y'all know. So we have here Genesis. We left off in Genesis 7. So Genesis 7 we see here said, "Thus God made the firmament," and I would highly recommend if you have not seen the previous video. Basically, we were just going through what it was talking about, the firmament, and what that firmament is mist. Basically, it is the mist that was around the world, and God divided the waters below it to make seas, and above it to make clouds and in the atmosphere. And we can jump back to verse 6 and get some context. But again, check out that video. I'm not going to go all the way back to verse 1, but in verse 6 it says, "Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters." Again, that firmament, that mist, that water, he's now dividing it. And what we see in Genesis is that there's clear distinction. God makes the heavens and the earth, and he makes the ground, and he makes the waters. And the beautiful thing about it is that it is this poetic way of showing how God makes a formless world, a world that is earth and water, but there's no clear distinction. They're intermingled. The same way that we see with light, that he divides light. He makes clear distinction. He shows that these things are not intertwined. They have a purpose and reason, and I've divided them for their purpose and reason. So it's a beautiful way of showing how God makes, out of chaos, he orders it. He orders the water where it's supposed to go. He orders the waters above it from the firmament and below it, again, dividing it, making order out of what looks like chaos. Really what is an unstructured world. So, continuing on, verse 7, "Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, so the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the water," and again, that firmament heaven, it means, it's not talking about the heavens like we think, oh, God's in the heavens or any sort of thing like that. It's talking about the heavens, like you look up, you see the heavens. The heavens are above the sky. Those are the heavens, because clearly we can see scripturally, it talks about, we see a couple different types of heavens. Now, there's a heaven that God's in, that he resides in. That's heaven. And then there's a heaven in terms of just looking into the sky, this sort of atmosphere. And then there's another heaven, the heaven of looking in the stars. And so we need to see those in context. Again, a lot of people, if you were to go back in the day, say, hey, look at the heavens, they'd be like, oh yeah, they would look up in the sky. Or the atmosphere, that was the heavens. The heavens, when it says in the very beginning, hey, God created the heavens and the earth, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about the heavens, the atmosphere, the stars, the clouds, the heavens. And that firmament, he's calling the heavens, the atmosphere, that mist, the clouds and everything that are around the world, that's the heavens. Because, and as well, we know it's not the heavens like the stars or anything like that, because those have not been established, and that's actually what we're going to see here in a little bit, that talks about stars and things like that. So, continuing on, and it says, let the waters be under the heavens, be gathered into one place, let the dry land appear, and it was so. So again, this is what he's talking about, making seas. God said, let the waters under the heavens, so underneath the atmosphere, be gathered into one place, seas, right? And let the dry land appear. So interestingly, he makes the world basically covered in water, and he puts the water over the earth and molds it, and then he lets the dry land appear. So it fills in those spots. He finds those places for the earth. Again, he's like molding the earth together, and it's a beautiful picture that we see here in verse 9. And then continuing on, it says, God called the dry land earth, and gathering together the waters he called seas. Again, dividing it. He's making order out of chaos. This is something that we know our God does. He's a God of order. He does not make chaos. This isn't, and one huge theme about this too is that a lot of times when talking about the creation of the earth, a lot of pagan ways of understanding the creation account is big battles, is big struggles, is things going on that are like, Sheba killed this, and then, the dragon's blood spilt, and it was the land, and then, the earth is the eye of a great giant that died, or something like that. And this is going directly all against that. This is showing, hey, God created everything. And moreover, God created everything formless. And he's the one that he himself formed everything together. He made the order out of the chaos. He made harmony out of chaos. Again, we see in the very beginning when we see it, the earth was without form, and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. There was darkness, form, and void. The earth, God spoke into existence. Earth itself, ground, matter, metals, different things, lava, these things that make up the earth were intermingled with waters, with liquids, with firmaments, with this, with mist, with clouds, and all these sorts of things. And he is making harmony out of this. He's making the solar system out of this. We later see when he makes the stars. So again, it's about order. And this is something that is structured. He makes division. He shows that there's a clear reason for earth. There's a clear reason for day. And again, it's that distinction. He says, hey, the earth is called land, and the seas are called, and he called the waters that gathered below the firmament, he called seas. Again, it's sort of a triad is what we have seen going on in the first 6 days. And every day you can look at it, there's distinctions. There's light and darkness intermingles, he divides them, and he makes a purpose for them. The second day, he makes and divides the waters from the firmament, he divides them. The third day, he gets the waters underneath and divides them from the earth and land. And it goes on. Every single day, it is a division. It is creating that harmony and order out of that chaos. So we continue on, and we see that on verse 10, again, it says, together the water he called seas, and God saw that it was good. And again, it's good because he's making order out of it. It was chaotic. It didn't have a reason. It didn't have a purpose. It was without distinction. But now it is good because it has a reason and a purpose and a distinction, and it's not just some intermingled thing. Continuing on, it says 11, then God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass. And just to go over that, basically, let's read 12, and then we can see the purpose of what they're conveying. And the earth brought forth grass, and the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Kind of a tongue twister, and almost sort of a redundant statement that we can see going on here. But what is the purpose? The purpose is, hey, God's saying, I've made these fruit, and they have a purpose. The seed of the fruit, an apple tree isn't going to have a seed of a pear, right? A fruit tree is going to have the fruit inside of it that's of the same tree. What is it showing? It's showing order. There's meticulous order. God has a reason and purpose for the grass, for the trees, for the seeds. Everything has its order and purpose, and the very seeds found in every tree. Again, God could have made an apple tree have a tree of a pear, but it would be chaotic. There's no order. There's no rhyme or reason to it. But we see that is not how God operates. He is a God of rhyme and reason and order and harmony, and he has made everything down to the trees, the grass, and the seeds to have a reason, a purpose, and an order. And that is what we clearly see in 11 through 12. He said, the earth brought forth grass, Now the earth begins to, now being outside of water, being distinct from the water, it is able to grow grass being watered. And again, it is order. There's a reason and purpose behind everything. This shows the great structure and meticulous work that God has made his creation. Sorry about that. I had to update on my on my computer. But 13 says, so the evening and the morning were the third day. I just want to talk about this right quick, talking about the days. There's this whole thing about the gap theory and this sorts of things. I just want to address this right quick because a lot of people tend to talk about, oh, this is a, talking about the days, old earth, young earth, different things like this. Here's the thing. What is my opinion? I believe I'm a young earth type of man. It makes the most sense. But here's the thing. And I could have talked about this at the end. I'll probably talk about this a couple of videos, but it's good to address this because that's something always somebody brings up, because it is throughout all of them talking about the days. I'll just briefly mention this. I'm going to actually, I'll hold that off. I'll dive into the gap theory and everything at the very end once we basically finish chapter 1, because chapter 1 is the first 6 days, and then after that goes in the 7th day where he rests. So I'll go into all of that at the very end, talking about the theories. I just want to address that right quick because I know some people are going to be like, oh, isn't there a theory about that? I'll get into that probably episode, I don't know, however long this takes. I'm not rushing this by any means, but just wanted to address that. Because I know some people are like, oh my gosh, well, isn't that a day in God's eyes? Is it that? He's like, I'm not even going to, I'll address that here at a later date. Okay, so, and it said, continuing on verse 14, it said, God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven, in the heavens, to divide the day from the night. And again, so we see the day and night is what? Day is light, we see, and darkness is night. So here we go. In verse 5, it says, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So light is day, darkness is night. So just to kind of, give some more context again. So God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the light from the day. So this is the creation. This is the start of him creating the solar system, the lights, the stars, the planets, Venus, Jupiter, all these sorts of things. And now he's starting, again, to make creation and order from this. Now, interestingly, again, we see that, let's continue on, and I'll go into my theory. And let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. This is an interesting verse that I never really, I suppose I brushed past going through this and when I previously did it. And even when I would always read it, I would just sort of brush by it. Because I would have this idea that, and there is some validity and truth in talking about days, seasons, and times. I believe that originally, now there is some truth in what I'm about to say. Because I would believe, and I'm starting to go back on this, that we never really had a track of time because before the fall of man, we would not die. So if you didn't die, then there's really no point in tracking time because it's just kind of, you're going to continue on living. But we can see in here in verse 14 that they did in some way, God made a purpose and a reason for the stars and the seasons for days and years. So we clearly see that God made the light stars for signs and seasons, and we don't even know what that looks like. What is a season like in a perfect world? We don't know. That it almost seems sort of impossible for us to even think about it, because when we think of seasons, okay, we think of winter, the harsh, cold, bitter winter. We think of summer, super hot, scorching heat, and those are things that are unpleasant or not good. But in a perfect world, all those things would be pleasant. They would be perfect. They would not be, the world would not get to 32 degrees or even colder in a perfect world, because that creates death. Literally everything dies. And we were literally naked. We didn't have anything. So that seems to be, that wouldn't happen. So what does a sign and season look like in a perfect world? We just don't know. But we know that God made the solar system, the lights, the stars for seasons. He made them so that the earth would in some way change. A season is a time of the earth in a state of change. It's in a season. Again, we think of autumn, winter, summer, spring, all these things. Those are the seasons that we have now. Again, what do the seasons look like in a perfect world? We just don't know. But there was seasons, there were signs, and again, there was days and years. So God made those for tracking. God made the days to be numbered in a sense, to say, to show progression. And I think that's because, again, I sort of go back on my idea of thinking, we didn't really track time. It looks like verse 14 we did, for days and years. And again, I think that's for progression, because it's so crazy to think of pre-fall Earth, of progression. Is, like, how would progression look like in a pre-fall Earth? Would we get eventually to technology like we have now? Would we get to a place to where we have all these sorts of super advancements? We don't know. That's just something we don't know. But again, it shows in this that over time that would be the case, because God made the universe in a way to be structured to where we would be in some way, not out of our own death, but for progression of things like technology, for building structures, for building, houses and things like that. Potentially, I see that as a potential, because again, we were in the garden, and the whole purpose was God, we're going to see later, God made man to tend and keep the garden. So that's the reason for man to tend and keep the garden. So would Adam be in the garden to tend and keep it forever? We don't know. Realistically, he wouldn't, just as a matter of when you look at it, because he has Eve. He said, be fruitful and multiply. So eventually, he would have haven't had to move out, or people that his children would have to move out, because it wouldn't not be able to, they would have too many people. But again, we don't. These are just all sort of hypothetical things that we don't know. But it's good to think about these things. It's good to think about and dive deeply into these things, because I used to think, hey, Adam didn't even write down the day or how long he was numbered. He probably did. Honestly, looking back at it now, there probably was a day, because later on, again, we see that he names every single animal. And if you're naming every single animal, you're going to be like, okay, day blank of naming animals, I've been naming animals so long that I've been going into a different season. And I think that's really what it's showing here. God made an order and a reason in that there's different times and seasons and days and years. He made these. And again, it goes back to the order of God. God's not making sort of a world that does not have a cycle. There's a cycle and there's a rhyme and reason to it. It's not just kind of floating off in the universe, whatever. No, there's days, there's rhythm. There shows a pattern because there's order to it. Like a clock. It's clockwork, right? God has made an intricate mechanism to where there's different seasons to enjoy, perfect seasons in this pre-fall world. So yeah, all that to say that just a little sort of coming to knowledge, I suppose, for myself, and it's good. And again, we need to think about these things deeply. It's good to actively read these things and challenge your own beliefs, biases. That's something good that we need to do. Because that's a theory that I had. I think, God, Adam didn't even think that there was even time. I think he did, in a sense, number his days, in a sense, not for his death, but to say, okay, for progression, because I'm sure he made tools and stuff, and it was like, if nothing else, it would be kind of cool, like, okay, day one of being on the earth with God. I don't know, not because he's going to die, but just, hey, that's how long I've lived. It kind of, I don't know. And I especially, I would say the real reason why I say that is for progression of technology and building and stuff, because how are you going to say, okay, because think about this too. Eventually, if they were to be fruitful and multiply and have a bunch of people, then, if you're trying to make something and you're in a flourishing economy, pre-fall, and I know I'm getting deep into this, but this is what we're here for, to think deeply of these things. If you're to tell somebody, if there's no dating of times, and it's just like kind of whatever, because, doesn't matter, because you're going to live forever. If you're a blacksmith and it's a perfect world, you're going to make somebody a cool knife to cut, a fruit open to eat it or whatever. And like, okay, when can I get this? They're like, oh, just kind of, you'll get it whenever. We live forever. It's like, no, it'd be like, okay, you're going to get it in a couple days. You're going to get it in September 4th or whatever. So it makes sense that, again, when I thought of this idea of God, at man not numbering their days. And again, the true part is man doesn't number their days now for their death. But I think still Adam knew how old he was. Again, we know how old Adam was before he died. So interesting. Well, this is another theory, and then I'll continue. Well, not theory. This is just, it's biblical. The interesting thing about the numbering of how old Adam was is that we don't know the date of his numbering of his own age had to have been started after the fall. So he would have lived however long plus that much, because he lived to like 930, I think, something around there, 930. And so that number would have started after fall because he would have lived forever. So just an interesting little factoid. But he could have just named his days. So that's a whole different thing. I know we've been on 14 for a while, but hey, I like to think deeply about these things, and we should think, hey, because again, it's even just a weird concept to say, wait. There's seasons in a perfect world. Again, what does that look like? We don't know. But just to think, there's seasons on this pre-fall earth. So there's perfect seasons, whatever that looks like. So it's just kind of cool. Something we need to think about. So, and continuing on from verse 14, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. Now, this is the beautiful, I love this verse. This is one of my favorite Genesis verse out of all of them. Continuing on in verse 16, and God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. This is a great verse. I love this verse because what it's talking about, it says, let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night. We need to just think about what they're saying here. They are saying here that light and darkness are called light and day, but they're called light and day before there's even stars. So how does that work, right? God makes the sun, and he makes it to rule the day. So the sun, he makes it, and then he gives it the properties of light. The very thing that the sun is meant for is to rule the day. What is the day that we see? Day is light. So he made the sun to rule light. Guys, think about what they're saying here. Again, let's go back to Genesis 1. Genesis 3, actually. Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and he divided the light from the darkness, clear division of good and bad. But again, light and darkness, he's dividing, he's making order. And he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So he's creating a sun, an entire planet, a immensely powerful, incredibly hot, huge star to rule the light. The sun to rule the light. S-O-S-U-N, not S-O-N. But we see this, and then it continues on, the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the moon, the lesser light, to rule the night. This is talking about the night and day cycle. But again, though, this is what's amazing about it. The greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. These are talking about the day and night cycle. The light's ruling the night because the way it turns, and then the sun's ruling the day because the way it turns, day and night cycle. But the most amazing part, that is so amazing that I love, is that God created light and darkness without planets. Think about how powerful God is. He doesn't make a planet that gives off light, that has a property that gives off light. No, he creates light first. He creates the very property, the very physical, the physical reality of light he created. And then he made a planet and gave it that property to give out light. Guys, think about that for a second. He didn't create a sun that already has light in it. He created light first. This shows the great immensity and power of God. He first creates the thing that the sun emanates. It's like making the very physical property, the physics of light first, and then making a light bulb. And then giving the light bulb the ability to give off that now. That's sort of a bad way of explaining it, but that's how he does it. This is what's amazing about it, because he forms the sun and he gives it that property to give off light. This is how structured and order he is. It goes from the very fundamental start of light itself. He created light itself because without light, nothing can be seen. Without darkness, there can be no night. There cannot be anything that is unseen. And what a crazy thing is too, is that in so many religions, again, the creation account is incredibly made pagan. It's talking about, this god killed this god and his eye fell off and it turned into the sun and all this sorts of thing. This right here, he's saying, no, God made the two great lights. He made the sun and he gave it the properties of light. And not only he gave it, and it rules the day. It rules light. And in our universe, that's so true. It rules light. It is the brightest star in we are literally, when you talk about rule the day, our earth, we know now, is revolving around the sun. Yeah. Because we used to think that the sun revolved around us. No, we revolve around the sun. And we have a moon. And so this shows and this dismantles a lot of pagan, a pagan reading this would be like, no. The sun was made from a god or this great battle. And it's like, no, God created the two great lights. Because when we think in our own world, when we look up, the biggest stars that we see, are the sun and the moon. And the moon, interestingly, says the greater light to rule the lesser light to rule the night. And people say the lesser light, the moon doesn't give off light. We know now it's just a reflection of the sun's light. Yes, but it still gives off light. It is reflecting, and this is such a great point, I think, too. Night is ruling, the moon rules the night, and it gives off no light. Because it rules the night, it rules darkness. But the sun is so powerful and so much bigger that it emanates its light and it reflects off the moon, that even on dark nights there can be a full moon that is reflecting off the great power and light coming off of the sun. So that's just something really cool, and again to be noted, because again, the thing that's ruling the night gives off no light because it's darkness. The thing that rules the day gives off light because it has been said to rule the day, which what is day? Day is light. What is night? Night is darkness. So again, we have to go back to Genesis 3 to see that. And God saw it was good. Now, I'll end it off with this because I think we're going about as long as we want to go. I just love Genesis. God saw it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Now, this is something that I originally thought we oftentimes... It's so crazy now to think of a pre-fall earth. It really is in so many different ways. And what I'm going to bring up now is we see that it's such a weird concept to think about night in a pre-fall world. Because like rest, isn't rest bad? We have to sit there and get rest. No, rest is a blessed and good and holy thing. But when we think of rest, we think about coming off a big, hard, toiled work day and then resting after being just totally exhausted and swamped. And that's not how it would be on a perfect earth. We see later on that the curse of the fall is to work by the sweat of your brow, is to work in toil and by thorns, and to work hard, that it's strenuous and laborious and painful. But pre-fall, that wasn't the case. It would have been still work, which is weird to think about work that is good, holy, and not in any way bad. Anytime we think about work now, it's, work, gotta do this, gotta dredge this and that and whatnot. But no, pre-fall work would have been something amazing, and rest at night would have been a blessed time to rest and to recuperate the sleep that we need. Again, it's just so weird to think about, rest is something God intended in a perfect world. That this is crazy too. Because when we talk about rest too, we talk about dreams. So God intended us to be awake, but to be asleep too, to rule the night and to dream. I think it shows God's even going to be with us in dreams. He's God of the of dreams as well. So God wanted us to be in a place where we rest with the Lord, even in dreams. Because I do think the Lord is with you even in dreams. He's the Lord of dreams. He's the Lord of everything. So it shows the great majesty of the Lord. When we really dive into everything and see how He created the light and the darkness, He created the sun and the moon to rule the day and the day and night cycle, and God said it was good. The day and night cycle is something good and that God wants for us to do. So we need to, don't be lacking on your sleep is a good point to make. But hey, hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm going to be making a ton more of these. I want to be heavily prioritizing these, so hopefully you enjoyed. I just now saw that I did not record my OBS recording, but that's okay. We'll take some screenshots, but it's all good. Hopefully you all have a blessed day. I'll get some screenshots to bring up in the video, but you all have a blessed day. And as always, think about yourself less, and comment down below. But think about yourself. No, I'm gonna redo that. Comment down below, like and subscribe, all that. I have a Patreon down below if you want to do that. That'd be awesome. But think about yourself less. Think about God a whole lot more. Now take it easy.